Save My Piggies, Your Life, Your Limb, Your Story, with host Dr. John Phillips and Kym McNicholas.
Gosh, where should we even begin with your story?
Well, I just practiced telling a friend my story in the shortest possible amount of time because I can really go off on these topics. But it started with a foot wound like everybody else. First, let me say I'm incredibly blessed that the only body part I've lost to date is one little toe, which, it's my little toe. So it's kind of a problem for me to not have it. I like it, but I'm good without it. I'm grateful I haven't lost everything. So let's start. I'm just going to run it through fast. And then Kym, if you have any questions, maybe we can elaborate on what you find to be interesting.
Okay.
So toe wound, normal everyday toe wound started with a blister. We need those wide toe box shoes, people. But it was a blister on the side of the little toe that expanded into a crater, got infected. We cured the infection once, came back. Now I have gangrene starting at the tip of my toe. Wound care specialist number one and podiatrist number one, they failed to do anything that healed. They did counterproductive things like putting iodine all over it and just a number of really dumb things that I now realize should never have happened. So the wound progressed to gangrene at up to the first section of the little toe when I switched to another provider. And they're like, oh, well, this is going to need an amputation. They threw every antibiotic known to man at it. The antibiotic does not heal the infection. Now I'm thinking, gee, either I have something really, really alien and resistant in my toe or the medicine's not getting to the toe. So there's when my wheels started turning right then. But, the second doctor also suggested, well, maybe we just take it off. It's just a little toe. I'm like, yeah, but it's my little toe. I don't want to lose a body part. I was talking about crazy things like maggots, let's get rid of the dead tissue, but all they want to do is debride. And shove more failed antibiotics at the situation. We even did hyperbaric oxygen therapy at an exorbitant amount of money it cost to do that. It had no effect on the problem. It should have had a little effect. It probably kept me from losing it sooner, but it did not heal or fix the problem. So here we are in an amputation. I go to the surgeon and I said, so if the situation is such that the antibiotics are not getting to the wound and healing it, what makes you think I'm going to be able to heal an amputation? And he said, well, we really don't have a choice at this point. We have to hope for the best. All right, so I did it. Guess what happened next? The wound of the amputation did not fully heal. The doctor's like, well, we can put some more stitches in it if you want. And I'm thinking to myself, let's drive the infection down further into the foot and see if that works, So intuitively, I knew that sewing it shut was not the answer. So I continued to quote unquote offload, which it's amazing the lack of common sense. The wound and where it's located and the offloading strategies they suggested were not compatible. So I kind of did my own thing, cut the boot open, made a little hole for it, all that stuff. But so it doesn't heal completely. We get some progress, does not heal completely. It starts to get more and more infected. This whole process is taking like a year at this point, almost a year. New Year's Eve, I just couldn't do it anymore. The pain was so incredible. I was obviously in CLI, but I didn't quite know it yet. But the pain was night and day. Narcotics were not working. Ibuprofen by the handful was no longer working. I couldn't sleep. I was sleeping sitting up. And the wound care doctor is still fooling around with different combinations of antibiotics. And I went into the office. I said, listen, whatever you guys are doing, it is not working. Luckily, the doctor was not there that day. It was a PA who said, let's just say you failed wound care and I want you to go to the ER. I'm like, you got it. I'm in. Go to the ER. They check me into the hospital. Of course, me being diabetic, I need to add that because we know it's an important causal factor. But I have blood sugars, under 100 because I'm on keto. My carbs are very low. My blood sugar is under control at the time. I need to add that. It's very important. So I'm in the hospital like, oh, we got a big diabetic foot wound here. She's infected. The attending's coming in. How are you feeling? I feel like shit. Oop, I shouldn't say that. I will refrain from using inappropriate language, but it's very hard at this part of the story. So here we are. I'm in the hospital. They're feeding this diabetic person, just like the previous speaker had said. They're feeding me all these carbs. I'm like, why are you giving me carbohydrates? Mashed potatoes, Jello, sugared Jello, and the like when you know I'm diabetic? Oh, well, we can just give you more insulin. Great idea. So there's that, combined with the fact that they're sending me a podiatrist who's digging in my foot and I'm screaming. And he's like, you shouldn't feel this. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, you have neuropathy. I'm like, I don't have neuropathy. I feel absolutely everything. There's not a single part of my foot that I cannot feel. Well, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, no kidding. So he's digging around. He's like, well, at this point, the infection is this, we think it might be osteomyelitis, even though I had an MRI that ruled out osteomyelitis, I might add. They probably just missed it on the MRI. It has to be osteomyelitis. Best thing we can do for you right now maybe is, amputate the foot. But first I'm going to debride this down to, oh, no debriding. And I'm already thinking, I'd read about arterial ulcers and the symptoms. I already know this has to be an arterial ulcer, the way it's acting, the way it's shaped, the pain, all of it. Not to mention my foot is now swollen up like a cantaloupe. So I am definitely sure that they're wrong at this point. So I said, no, you will not do debridement on me right now. And so the attending comes in. I hear you're giving my staff a hard time, or my other doctors. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give you a hard time too. You can go. I do not want you anymore because you are not solving my problem. But never mind, but get me somebody else. And keep the podiatrist out of my room too. So the new doctor is a PA, and I'm telling her my theory. I'm like, listen, I'm thinking right now, I'm not getting blood flow to this foot. Otherwise, the antibiotics would have done something. And I'm thinking I want a vascular study. And she's like, you know what? I think you're onto something. You need to tell the doctor. So I said, I want a vascular study. Well, that's really not necessary. You have history of diabetes. You have history of smoking. All the more reason why I need a vascular study, we now know, right, Kym?
Exactly. And
So,
I'm so impressed with your research on your own that you were able to put all the pieces together.
yeah. So they're still saying, the vascular study is unnecessary. And I said, look, there's this thing called the ADA. I have diabetes. You're discriminating against me and making assumptions about this disease and what its process is, and not giving me the medical care I'm asking you for. You have two choices here. I'm going to call a press conference, or you're going to do a vascular study. And that's that. And sure enough, they had a guy come through, a vascular guy, and he's listening with the stethoscope. And he's like, you definitely need a vascular study. Guess what? My SFA is 90% blocked. There's almost nothing going on in the lower leg. The foot has absolutely no blood supply. It's a wonder that, so they discharged me from the hospital. I had an angioplasty shortly thereafter. And the wound was healed in 2 months.
That's incredible.
And it immediately showed signs of healing. The CLI regressed immediately. You know what that is, right? Everyone listening, if not, Kym already said it a little while ago. Critical limb, I say ischemia. She says it the right way, probably, because my knowledge is mostly book-based. But it was clearly that, and it regressed immediately upon getting blood flow to the foot, completely healed in 2 months. Now, this is where weight of my heart comes in. So it turns out that the nice vascular guy really wasn't a trained person. He probably did the angioplasty more roughly or not conservatively like he should have. It reblocked pretty quickly. And so this quote unquote limb saver tells me that we can't restore blood flow to the lower leg. We can't go into the lower leg with these procedures. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just got done reading numerous medical journals that indicate that you can. And this woman who I met on Facebook is telling me that you can. Well, then go find someone who can. So Kym hooked me up with a great doctor. I've had a number of other procedures since. I have both legs. All that while I was sitting around waiting to heal wounds, the P.A.D. started really affecting the other leg because I'm sedentary. I'm not moving for almost 2 years. I'm not walking. They're telling me to stay off it. So that, of course, made the situation worse. But we are now on the right track. I'm taking a wonderful medication. I have a great doctor I really trust because of Kym. And he recently told his PA, the PA and I had a debate about something. I don't remember what it was. I wanted proof that Repatha was useful and okay. And so he brought the doctor in. He's like, oh, Michelle, how you doing? Listen, she directs her own care. He said to the PA. So, all's well that ends well. Obviously, we're all fighting this disease. I'm now walking 2+ miles a day. Wounds are all healed at the moment, knock wood. I have my little dog, and she and I are out 2 to 3 times a day. And I'm not even counting the steps at work because we're not allowed to have our phones. But things are going very well. And it's largely because of getting the proper interventions and having the right people on my team.
Isn't it amazing, though, that it took to the point to which you were a toe step away from amputation to actually, um, you know that something was actually going on? You didn't know prior, or did you have any symptoms prior to that wound? And you didn't have neuropathy.
None. I have nerve damage now from all this BS that went on with my leg, and the foot and the healing process. But no, I could feel everything. I got tested annually. There's no neuropathy.
Do you think just because you're so active and you're so driven that you might have overlooked maybe a little bit of weakness in your leg or some pain or some cramping at some point?
I knew it. And there was claudication. I just didn't know what it was called. And I chalked it up to being in my mid to late 40s. I just thought my body's starting to give out a little bit. But it didn't really slow me down until the wound issue.
Wow. So your final piece of advice, your story is incredible, and you're inspiring in that you really have done your research and you found the right research, and you even went to the extent of reading scientific journals and the studies that were done that proved that below the knee and into the foot revascularization is possible when medically appropriate and in the right hands with the right tools that are advanced in techniques.
And I would just chalk it up too. I mean, I'm not like exceptionally intelligent. I'm pretty well educated. I have a couple of master's degrees and whatnot, but not in medicine. But I would chalk most of it up to common sense. I think a plumber could figure out this case. A plumber understands how liquid moves. Anybody who understands how liquid moves should be able to figure out that there was a blood flow problem.
And that's what's amazing to me. The moment that stood out in your story is when you said, "Hey, doctor, are the antibiotics actually getting to where they need? Are they able to actually reach this infection in the toe?" And I would have thought at that point, and I think that's where you were a little frustrated as well, you would have thought that logically, common sense would have told them, bing, 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 light goes on, we need to do a vascular assessment.
Yep. It's shocking. And I know it happens every day, especially people with a diabetes diagnosis, people who are in poorer communities, people without adequate health insurance, people who are not able to advocate for themselves. I am sure that many of these amputations are unnecessary. And it's so sad that people have to go to that extreme to advocate for themselves.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us.